Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates. With your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. This is Cindy, and welcome to another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. Today, you'll be hearing part 2 of an interview that we've already begun. So if you missed part 1, you may want to go back and listen to the first half of the interview before you hear today's interview, or not. You can always just stay today and enjoy and go back later. So hang out with us and enjoy the interview.
One real quick thing about the very first thing he ever communicated independently was my friend. She did a lesson with him on the history of the t-shirt. And she asked him, okay, if you could put any slogan on a t-shirt at all, what slogan would you put? It was the first open question anyone had ever asked him. And he spelled out, I-M-I-N-H-E-R-E. I'm in here. And of course, I was sobbing and crying.
You're crying, yeah.
After freaking 2 decades. And his first experiences were to, I'm like, so it was all just shocking. And then I wanted to know everything. And I wanted to know how he knew all these things. And he said, well, I have a photographic memory and I have this and I have this. And so basically he starts explaining this mind of his that is not understanding, it's actually understanding everything and taking in all this that's around us. And he began telling us that he could hear our thoughts. And I'm like,
excuse me? Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually the word I used.
Yeah.
Bullshit. And he started spelling out what I'm thinking. And I was like,
did he spell out bullshit?
No, because I verbally said that.
Okay.
No. And then I tested him again and I tested him again. And then I had my daughter text me something and he spelled out that. And I went on and on and on to the point I was like, oh my gosh. And so then he started explaining how, and I had already kind of come to this realization because of some of the things that I didn't realize it before, but thought is a thing. It's like we think that just what we sense is real, but it's not. Like what we think is real too. What we feel is real. It's actual energy. That's what energy or emotion is. It's energy in motion, and they feel it all. Mm-hmm. They're feeling everyone's emotion. They're hearing everyone's thoughts. They are seeing who the person really is because we are souls. That's what we are. We have physical bodies, but we are souls. And these guys, and again, to varying degrees, I don't want to say they all have, gifts. Because some have some and some have others, but they see who a person truly is, and that appears as what they would call an aura, but it's what they're seeing is the soul. And based on kind of who you are in your essence and what you're made of, that color appears. That's resonating because it's a frequency. Mm-hmm. For example, he explained that gray is one of the worst. And he said people who are depressed and sick are gray. And he said it's one of the hardest colors, the hardest auras, because it's so heavy that it drowns out everything. It drowns out music. It drowns out love. It's literally oppressed. And you think about somebody who's depressed and sick and they literally feel like that.
Yes.
And you sense that around them. Mm-hmm. He describes like the purple people. And the purple people are awesome. And he said, have you ever been around people? And it's why being around somebody who's very loving, how you just feel better around them. And mm-hmm. It's because the purple actually gives off overtones, and overtones melt the darker feelings and emotions away. It's why you feel better when you're around someone, because their frequency literally melted your bad frequency.
Right.
And so it's all energy and frequency and wavelengths, except what happens in their brains is we just see the light on a light wave. We see the blue on this, we see something like that, where they hear the sound that the blue makes.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that before. I've heard people, yes, this is not the first time I'm hearing that. Yeah, that they see the colors in the sound.
Yes, and that's the synesthesia.
Sound, yeah.
Mm-hmm. As my son said, he said, I hear what I see and I see what I hear, but it's more complicated than that. Some of the colors actually even have a taste and a mm-hmm. smell.
Wow.
And so you don't want, the dark colors aren't great. I'll just tell you that. So, mm-hmm. But anyway, so he's explaining all this, and whenever he starts explaining all of this, of course, it gets into, he starts telling about his cover, and he called her his cover, and I was like, and he referred to her as Esther, and I'm like, who's Esther? Because I had a great aunt. She was my grandmother's identical twin sister who died, and my grandmother died, so that was kind of who I knew as my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, anyway, so then he starts telling stories from my great aunt that I've never told. There's no way he would know them.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things from my childhood and just shocking things. And then he says how she's always with him. And I'm like, well, when did that happen? And then he started talking about that Jesus brought my great aunt to my son because he had been crying out for God to save him and help him and give him a voice and answer his prayers. And it was so bad. And he had brought my great aunt to be with him on this journey that he was going to go through. And the angels would take him to see heaven. And my son's not the only one, by the way. There are multiple kids that are saying the same thing. And he has seen Jesus on the throne and the angels worshiping him. And my son, by the way, was kept in the basement of the church in the special needs classroom and watched, videos.
Right.
He was not given any theological
instruction. How would he know these things, right? Yeah.
That is my point. And one of the things he said was, when I said, well, like, tell me about heaven. And he said, well, one of the main things in heaven, literally spelling all this out, right? One of the main things in heaven is the making of new chances to give us. And I went, what? And I was like, oh my gosh, his mercy is new every morning. And I was like, and it goes, that's just the beginning. That's like one little tiny piece.
When would he go to heaven? Like when he was sleeping at night or during the day, or?
So it was both. He said, I've been to heaven and God shows me visions. And he also, because he explained all time is happening at the same time and space is twisted inside of time. Mm-hmm. That he said, what happens is the angels will open windows in time to let me see things. And so he would start telling us things that other people were experiencing. And then those people were confirming what my son was saying, which was wild.
So he was seeing things about other people also.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And then he could see like angels. He can see all the angels and demons around us. Right. And he's like, there's evil everywhere. People just don't realize it.
Yeah. And he can see it.
Right. And like one of his friends asked him, who can sense but can't see. Okay. So that's what I was saying, like there's different levels,
right? And
a lot of them can sense but not necessarily visualize it. Mm-hmm. Because it's that portion of the brain isn't open up to that part of the frequency, but they're still sensing it. They just don't have that particular component. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, he was asked, do you see the darkness and the light or just the light? And at that point, I didn't even they were having this conversation. And I'm like, what are they talking about? I don't understand. And my son sat up and he said, I see everything. Neurotypicals believe. I've seen. When you've seen what I've seen, there is no doubt. And the thing is, he said he's consumed with love for God. How can you be trapped in your body and experience injustice after injustice after injustice and see the worst of people and still make that statement unless you've really seen it?
Mm-hmm. So does he see angels in your house?
Yes.
Because I'm going to my next interview is a mom that her son used RPM, and she asked him, she said, I know you go to Hebrew school, but how do you feel about God? And he said, God is in my heart. I've known God for a long time. I'm not going to give it away because that's going to be my next interview. Mm-hmm. But what did your son say about Jewish people?
Oh, he said that, this is a great story. God gave me a list of Jewish people to tell about Jesus to. And he said, there was this one Jewish man that we met, and my son, and he's like a little on the rougher side, kind of has that businessman, mentality. And my son walks straight up to him and tries to embrace him. And I'm like, no, don't do that. So I should really just shut up and stop trying to like, because clearly my son knows what he's doing sometimes. Because this is what he said. He said, because then the man kind of, once he saw and spoke with Houston, he realized, oh my goodness, like there's something really going on here.
Mhm.
And he wanted to know about his angel. And Houston said, all God's children, the Jewish people, no, I'm sorry, all God's chosen, that's what he said, all God's chosen, the Jewish people have a cloud of angels around them. That's why I wanted to hug him. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say
they're like, they're
them his chosen people. Yeah.
they just
That's
are
exactly
like,
what he called them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, wow. And, you know, the fact that even through my non-speaking son, God is still trying to reach his chosen people. I mean, I'm amazed by that. And I want them to know what my son knows. I want them to see what he's seen. I want them to believe. That's what I want. I want them to believe.
Tell me more about heaven, since Robbie's there now.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
I've read books about it, and I've listened to other people that have been there and been back, but I want to know what your son saw.
I really do not want to paraphrase what he said because it's so much better than how I would.
Is it in your book?
Yes, it is. It's all in there.
Oh, okay.
I put everything in there. It's okay. He's talked about how he sees all the angels bowing down. He talks about how he sees like the actual process of prayer in heaven. And prayer has wings. Prayer literally takes off. And he said thoughts float away, but prayer actually has lift and it lifts off. And that was when he first realized that prayer was different than thought. And he talks about how what the angels do with the prayers and how the angels of children see the face of God before any other angel. God answers their prayers first, whatever they go to him with first.
Children's prayers. Yeah, that I believe. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know. And that doesn't surprise me.
Not a bit.
Yeah.
And he talks about that he's this one time I was like, well, I don't understand. Like I read, like I was trying to put what he was saying in my little box. Theology, box. Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and he had this strange look on his face and he goes, Jesus told me to tell you, stop trying to think about theology. He is love and power. And I went,
oh, okay. Oops.
He is love and power. Got it. So wow. I've stopped trying to box God.
Yeah.
But he said, like to his one friend.
You really think that when the kids are waking up at 4 a.m. and they're laughing, that they are seeing their angels?
It's the thing is it would be one thing for me to say like, but I've heard it from multiple. They don't just see angels, they don't just see demons. Some of them have been to heaven, but they also see people who are still like who their spirits are still here or they're coming back where they have a purpose. Houston said that some of the people who have already passed on and gone to heaven, that they're given jobs because we all have jobs. Mm-hmm. And he said some of their jobs, he calls them past loves. So they love people. They go and they bring God's love to people that are still here. And he's seen the book of life.
Yeah. And some people's names are written in there and some are not.
Yeah. He said most of the blue people are in the book of life.
The blue people. I was going to ask, is blue a good color?
It's a great color.
I want to know what color he would see around me.
I know he's actually napping.
Darn it.
I know. We'll work that out. We'll arrange that. He'll tell you.
Yeah.
And here was like because he can see it still. It appears on photographs and video. People have asked me that. And I'm like, and it does. And I was showing him historical figures, and he was telling me their auras from these old photographs,
really,
which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, interesting.
I
want to ask you. So did you believe in any of this stuff before your son started telling you about this, about seeing angels and things like that?
I mean, I'm Presbyterian, so it's like you believe it's there, but you don't talk about it or acknowledge it or try to it's almost like anything other, if you talk about anything other than Jesus Christ, you're taking away from Jesus Christ. So you just kind of put blinders on. Really, we're like horses with blinders.
Yeah. They don't want you talking about angels too much because people worship angels. You're not supposed
to worship angels. Exactly. And that's why
Jesus.
This has been very hard for me, because my son's like seeing this whole world. But it's like this with, just because I see the beauty of creation doesn't keep me from acknowledging Jesus Christ as the creator and the Lord of the universe and the living word. None of the fact that his creation is beautiful keeps me from recognizing who the source is. He's the source. Do I eat fruit? Yes, I do. Do I, take a lovely stroll in the garden? I do. Do I enjoy sunsets? I do. Recognizing that other parts of creation have power and beauty and wonder. I'm not in any way trying to say they are the source. Jesus is the source. I'm just saying that what we see in creation is not the full creation that God originally created it. All creation yearns for Christ to return so it can be taken back to its fullness. And my son and some of these other kids they have more of an awareness of that full creation than we do. And
I think most people have the basic understanding, people that are Christians or Jews or any religion, really, we all have this basic understanding that we have a body, but we also have a spirit. We have a spirit, soul, and body. And so what does the soul look like? If you believe in the spiritual realm, some people are going to tap into that and they're going to see it, hear it, smell it, feel it, whatever. And from what you're explaining today, you're helping us understand how it makes a lot of sense to me, because it's what I always suspected, is that they are tapping into the spirit realm somehow. Yeah. And I just wasn't sure how. And I just thought maybe it's because Robbie couldn't speak. So it's kind of like a blind person, their hearing is more sensitive because they're more tuned into their environment hearing because they can't see. So I thought maybe it had something to do with, because he's nonverbal, somehow he's hypersensitive in another way. But you're explaining.
Do you want to hear my opinion about what happens?
Yeah.
I think we're all born with the ability, like infants, there was an autistic.
Yes, because my baby grandson, he laughs in his crib, and I say to my daughter, I said, he sees the angels in his room.
He does, yeah.
Because he's just came down from heaven. He hasn't been taught by the world to shut all that stuff out yet.
Well, I think what happens in neurotypical development is whenever you begin to how they say like an infant's mind is learning at some insane rate versus, an adult's mind. And the reason why is because as you develop, as your brain starts focusing on motor, because that's when you start trying to move your body and everything, it starts basically the brain starts pruning all the synapses. And those are essentially what's like taking in all that sensory information, all that energetic information that's coming at them. And there was an autistic who was non-speaking that passed away, and there was an autopsy done on them, and that was what they found, was he still had this massive amount of synapses. The brain hadn't gone through that natural pruning process that it goes through in development. So I think their brains is just like still wide open to everything, and it wasn't able to focus on the motor processing. That's my own personal opinion. What happens when that happens? Well, I mean, my personal opinion is, because I experienced it, was my son probably had an immune deficiency. So when he got the immunizations, his body did not react appropriately. And the thing about the aluminum objectivans is the heavy metals have an additional electron. They are free radical. And so whenever electrons want to be in pairs, and so what it does is it steals an electron, and then that cell becomes unstable, and then it steals an electron, and so it causes a chain reaction. And it starts creating massive oxidative stress and destroying and damaging cells, DNA, all sort proteins, everything in the body, and especially in the brain. Especially if these metals stay in the brain, they attach. And so I think, in my opinion, that is why it looks different from person to person is because the oxidative stress happened differently in one person versus another person. And that particular strand had this much aluminum with these many cells, these many electrons that created free radicals and so on. From the research I've done, that's kind of what my synopsis and hypothesis is.
Yeah.
And
well, that's
from what I read versus what I saw.
That's why I call this show Spectrum Perspectives, because this is your perspective.
Right.
Right. And everybody has a different perspective. And I find it very fascinating to listen to everybody's different perspective. We've been talking for a long time. I have to wrap it up as much as I would like to keep talking to you for 3 more hours. I want you to tell everybody quickly about your book. Are you doing a Kickstarter or?
I'm doing a Fundly campaign. So that I researched some Christian crowdfunding sources and I came across Fundly and I really liked what they did. And so that's who I went with. So I'm raising money because I quote songs throughout this process because it's my own journey of faith where I went from very, well studied Christian and, I had a very, solid faith to experiencing just massive amounts of trials and trauma and devastation to the point where I just really felt like God didn't love me at all. And I that was my opinion, was I love God and he didn't love me. And that's where I was for a long time. And then the miracle of my son, my own faith journey, wobbling through that, getting through all the resentment to a place of joy, to a place of hope, to a place of miracles. And so in that process, I do quote several many songs, because they speak more to what of the emotion that I was feeling. And then I found out that when you print a song, you have to pay for the song license fee, which is quite expensive. Yes. And so I am raising money to pay for the song license fees, for the and all the other publishing costs that are associated with printing a book on your own.
Yeah, I because I saw it and I was like, the price is kind of high. It's higher than what I did for 3 books. And I was going to ask you what's it for? And that completely makes sense, because as a singer-songwriter, I understand that. And when I did,
it's essentially going to be $390 per song that I quote. Yeah. And even if it's just one line from the song, you still have to pay for the whole thing.
Yes, songwriters want their royalties.
And that's okay. Like, I get it. I'm not objecting.
And you're doing things the ethical, correct way.
I am. I'm trying.
You want that purple aura.
I do. I want to be purple and blue. I'm surprised you didn't ask me what color Houston is.
Yeah. What? Yes. What is he? So does he? I guess he sees his own. What he see it in the mirror?
He sees his own color. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
He does have some other colors in there, but the main color that he is gold.
Oh.
And I said, well, what's gold? And he said, a gold aura is someone who is in communication with the angelic world.
Wow.
The spiritual realm.
Very cool.
And and children, all newborns, we all start off white, just in case everybody knows, we all start off white. And women, when they're pregnant, have a halo around them.
Cool.
Yeah. And some of the, when we went to this one special needs event with, it was a whole conference room with all people of all kinds of different developmental disabilities. And Houston was in shock. And he said, I've never seen so many people with white and gold auras.
Yes. I was going to say, there's something about it, just by you saying a room full of all these kids with special needs, right away, I feel it.
Yeah.
And you feel it. It's like,
I totally transcendent.
When I say there's something, I call them special. A lot of people don't like the term special needs, but to me, they are special because there's something, you feel the presence of God in them and you feel the love of God in them. You just do, I mean, look
they all had to say what their special skill was.
Yeah.
And these kids who, and I'm talking about, some of these were adults with disabilities, significant disabilities. Mm-hmm. And they were all, my purpose is to tell people about Jesus. My purpose is to love Jesus. My purpose is it was like, I just wanted to cry. Like the whole time I was in that room, I just wanted to cry.
Yeah, because I'm sorry that that didn't happen when Robbie was here, but now that he's in heaven now, he's absolutely communicating to me. I told you the whole story of how the penguins kept appearing, and I absolutely was getting messages from him. I believe the Bible talks about your great cloud of witnesses that are praying for you in heaven, and he's part of my great cloud, but he's not in the crowd. He's like the main one. and he is praying for me, guiding me, however you want to say it. He's pushing me to get his message out. And it's gotten out more now than it has before, just like these crazy supernatural things that keep happening, and everybody sees it. All my friends on Facebook, everybody sees it. They're like, I cannot believe the stories that I cannot believe what happened in your life over the past 3 years.
I personally feel like that the reason God is doing like this, I've seen autistics say that, spell out to their parents, autistics are here to save the world. Mm-hmm. And I think that the world has become so like, we have to have proof, we have to have evidence, it has to be science, it has to be this, mm-hmm. And I think that God's like, oh, nothing's too hard for me, watch this. Mm-hmm. And I will just remove the veil.
And Jesus said you have to be like little children,
Mm-hmm. Somebody sent me that verse just the other day.
Yeah. Stop trying to figure it out. Stop trying to put a scientific label on everything.
It's too big for us.
It is. Yeah, it is. So what's the title of the book? Did you have a title yet or no?
Yes, this title is The Book of Heaven. And the reason it is that title is because that's my son's testimony. He has seen heaven and he describes heaven in this book. And I describe a God of miracles when I thought that there was no hope at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to end on that note. I'm going to put up the information for everybody if they want to donate to your, what is it called again? I want to call it a Kickstarter.
It's Fundly.
Fundly. Okay.
I like the name, Fundly.
Yes, Fundly. Okay, so if they want to donate to you to help you get that book out, and I'll put the name of the book on there, and I'll put it on my Facebook page, the link, so everybody can find you and help you get that book out, because his message needs to he needs to help save the world.
I agree. Well, him and his friends, all of them, they're incredible.
Terrific. And I'm going to send you a recent picture of me and you tell me what color I am.
I will. I can't wait. I can't wait. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
Bye. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. To see the video version of the show, go to our YouTube channel, Robbie and Me, Autism Reality. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.